My name is Evelyn Brooks, and at 24, I thought I'd landed my dream job at a promising marketing firm in Boston. But what started as excitement quickly unraveled into a nightmare of office betrayal and toxic workplace culture. Initially, I overlooked the subtle signs: jealous coworkers, whispered conversations, and competitive tension. Soon, however, I discovered someone was deliberately sabotaging my work, secretly altering critical project files. Trusting my gut, I reached out to my brother Jonathan, a sharp attorney who helped me uncover undeniable proof of workplace sabotage by Olivia, a coworker I'd trusted deeply. Confronting Olivia and exposing her deception to management was challenging, yet empowering. After justice was served, I realized this toxic environment no longer aligned with my values, choosing integrity and growth. I boldly resigned and founded my own company, ClearSight Marketing, dedicated to transparency and authenticity. This is my personal journey from betrayal to empowerment, a powerful reminder about overcoming adversity, trusting your instincts, and rebuilding life on your own terms. Watch now to hear my full story and discover how I turned office betrayal into a story of strength, freedom, and personal growth. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life inspired power stories like this one. The day I got the job offer, I thought my life was finally beginning. Little did I know it was actually starting to unravel. I remember clearly that brisk autumn afternoon standing outside the sleek glass building in downtown Boston. I clutched my coffee cup tightly, heart racing with excitement, nerves jittering beneath my skin. It was my first real job since graduating with a degree in marketing, and the pride that swelled within me was almost palpable. Finally, after months of uncertainty, endless applications, and interviews that felt more like interrogations, I was officially stepping into the adult world. My family had celebrated loudly, cheering over a bottle of champagne. Mom cried happy tears. Dad couldn't stop grinning, and Jonathan, my brother and constant protector, had gently squeezed my shoulder, whispering, "Proud of you, Evie. You earned this." His words still echoed warmly in my mind, grounding me as I pushed open the heavy glass door for the first time. My new manager, Mark, welcomed me warmly. Tall, sharp-suited, and charismatic, he immediately put me at ease. He had the kind of reassuring voice and direct gaze that made you believe in yourself even more. "We hired you because we need fresh ideas, Evelyn," he told me firmly, his handshake warm and genuine. "We see big things coming from you." That initial sense of belonging only deepened in those early days. My ideas were respected, my contributions were acknowledged, and the validation felt almost addictive. Mark regularly praised my quick thinking and creativity in front of everyone. I saw my coworkers' smiles and heard their polite applause during meetings, naively believing these gestures signified genuine support. But soon enough, subtle signs appeared. Little details. My intuition began quietly noting conversations that abruptly ended when I approached, smiles that faded just slightly when I spoke up. Yet in my eagerness to belong, I brushed aside those small warnings, reassuring myself I was simply overthinking. Especially friendly was Olivia Bennett, warm-eyed, chatty, always lingering by my desk to ask about my weekend or offer advice. On the surface, she seemed genuinely kind. Yet something in my gut stirred uneasily each time Olivia flashed her overly bright smile or patted my shoulder. Her laughter, a bit too high-pitched, her eyes glancing away just a fraction too quickly. One evening, as I packed up after everyone else had left, I noticed Olivia standing near Mark's office, whispering with another coworker whose face was turned away, their heads bent close together, voices hushed. I slowed my pace, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling in subtle warning. When Olivia glanced up and saw me, her expression swiftly shifted from surprise to a broad smile. "Oh, hey, Evie. Still here?" I nodded, forcing a casual smile of my own, though my heart beat uncomfortably in my chest. Something felt off, but again, I told myself to ignore it. After all, every workplace had its cliques and quiet discussions. Surely, I was imagining problems where none existed. It wasn't until a few days later during an important brainstorming session that my unease crystallized into certainty. I stood up, presenting a detailed marketing strategy I'd spent nights perfecting. As I explained my ideas confidently, I caught Olivia's gaze. She was smiling, but beneath that practiced cheerfulness was something sharp and fleeting. Envy, annoyance, perhaps? Resentment. It vanished quickly, replaced by the same saccharine mask, but it was too late. I had seen enough. Still, I pushed the nagging feeling away once again, eager not to believe the worst. I wanted so badly to trust that people were fundamentally good, that my coworkers were genuinely rooting for me. It was easier than accepting the truth. I already sensed beneath the glittering facade of this promising new job something was terribly wrong. And soon enough, the facade began to crack, revealing the darker truth hidden behind the polite smiles and cheerful chatter, forcing me to confront an uncomfortable reality that would forever alter my perception of trust, friendship, and the true meaning of workplace loyalty. Those initial weeks passed quickly, a blur of onboarding meetings, endless training sessions, and late evenings hunched over my laptop determined to prove myself. The first signs of autumn were slowly fading, replaced by sharper winds and shorter days. Yet while the weather grew colder, the office environment felt colder still. I started noticing patterns I wished I could ignore. Small clusters of employees gathered in hushed whispers near the coffee machine or in secluded corners of the office, abruptly dispersing when they noticed someone approaching. At first, I shrugged it off. It was probably nothing more than typical workplace gossip, harmless chatter about office politics or weekend plans. But my intuition tugged at me relentlessly, urging me to pay attention. One afternoon during a weekly team meeting, Mark commended me for landing a significant client pitch, a crucial account our department had chased for months. He turned towards me with a broad, genuine smile, openly praising my strategy and execution. "Excellent work, Evelyn," Mark declared warmly. "Your ideas have truly impressed the board, and you've brought fresh thinking this department sorely needed." I felt a flush of warmth spread through my chest, pride mixed with modest embarrassment as my coworkers clapped politely. Yet when I glanced toward Olivia, seated a few seats down, her eyes flickered briefly, something icy slipping across her carefully maintained smile. For just an instant, resentment flared unmistakably before dissolving back into practiced cheerfulness. The sensation was unsettling. I'd always prided myself on noticing details others overlooked. But here at my dream job, that trait suddenly felt like a curse rather than a gift. Later that day, I approached Olivia's desk, feeling an instinctive need to ease the strange tension between us. "Hey, Olivia." I began carefully, leaning casually against the partition that separated our cubicles. "Are you busy? I was hoping to run something by you." She lifted her head slowly, forcing her lips into a polite curve. "Sure, Evie. What's up?" I hesitated suddenly, unsure how to phrase my concerns without sounding paranoid. "I don't know, I just get the feeling something might be bothering you. Did I maybe step on your toes somehow with that last client pitch? If I did, it definitely wasn't intentional." Her eyes widened slightly, the perfect image of surprise. "Oh no, Evie," she reassured, her voice smooth and comforting. "Honestly, don't worry about it. I'm thrilled you're doing so well. Mark clearly sees something special in you." She paused, her smile widening. "You deserve it." I wanted desperately to trust her words, but as Olivia turned back to her screen, I couldn't shake off the sense that her kindness had been carefully manufactured, tailored specifically for my benefits. Days turned into weeks, and subtle clues piled up, each one like an unnoticed piece of evidence in a slow-building case against my own naivete. At lunch breaks, my invitations to join coworkers began receiving polite declines more often than not. Conversations would shift slightly, voices dropping lower the moment I entered the room. In meetings, suggestions I made were subtly downplayed by Olivia or quickly dismissed with vague excuses. Despite this, I kept reassuring myself, desperate to preserve the illusion that everything was fine. After all, Olivia always remained friendly, bringing me coffee, complimenting my outfits, asking about my weekend plans. Yet beneath every gesture lingered a shadowy discomfort, a feeling too ambiguous to name, yet too tangible to ignore. Then came the evening when I stayed late at the office to finalize an important presentation. As I prepared to leave, I glanced briefly toward Mark's office and froze mid-step. Olivia stood inside, leaning over Mark's desk, pointing animatedly at something on his laptop screen. Their faces were serious, locked in deep discussion. When Mark shook his head sharply, clearly disagreeing, Olivia's expression darkened in a way I'd never seen, intense, almost furious. Suddenly feeling intrusive, I quickly looked away, heart thudding uncomfortably. What had I just witnessed? Something felt deeply wrong, and my pulse quickened with an anxious unease. Hurriedly gathering my things, I slipped out quietly, praying they hadn't noticed my presence. That night, sleep came fitfully. Questions and doubts swirled endlessly in my mind, leaving me restless. Something inside kept whispering warnings. I desperately wanted to deny but couldn't. The truth pressed against me, heavy and insistent. My seemingly welcoming workplace was hiding secrets behind its polished exterior. Secrets that would soon reveal themselves in ways I could never have imagined. When I arrived at the office early the next morning, it felt like any other Wednesday. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves, and the corridors were still quiet. Most of my colleagues had yet to arrive. Habitually cautious, I made it my daily ritual to double-check the crucial project files before meetings. It was my way of calming anxiety, ensuring everything was perfectly aligned and leaving nothing to chance. Settling into my chair, I took a long sip from my coffee cup and opened the project file on my laptop. My eyes scanned through familiar slides, noting key points, charts, statistics. Initially, everything appeared perfectly in place until my cursor paused abruptly on slide 16. A chill ran down my spine, and my breath caught sharply in my throat. Something was different. It was subtle enough that a casual glance would never notice, but glaringly obvious to someone who had personally poured countless late nights into the project. The final budget figures had been slightly but crucially altered, just a single digit changed, but enough to significantly inflate projected expenses, undermining the entire strategy I had meticulously developed. My pulse began to quicken, heartbeat thudding uncomfortably against my ribcage. Panic threatened to rise within me, hot and sharp, but I fought it back, forcing my mind into calm analysis. Who else had access? Who would do something like this? Why I glanced around instinctively, paranoia prickling my skin. The office was still silent, the shadows of early morning making everything seem distant and unreal. Olivia's desk, positioned just across the aisle from mine, sat empty, innocent in appearance, but ominous in its vacancy. I had no concrete proof yet, no reason to accuse her outright. Yet the unsettled feeling that had haunted me for weeks coalesced suddenly into dread-filled certainty. Someone wanted me to fail, to embarrass me publicly, to discredit my credibility and competence right in front of Mark and senior management. My hands trembled slightly as I stared back at the altered file. I felt vulnerable, betrayed, the sensation deeply personal. But more than that, I felt fiercely determined. Whoever had sabotaged me hadn't accounted for my meticulous nature, hadn't predicted my obsessive habit of verifying every detail. But even knowing I'd caught the mistake in time didn't stop my hands from shaking, nor did it ease the tight knot forming in my stomach. The realization sank heavily into my mind. I was dealing with something darker, more malicious than mere office rivalry. It was calculated sabotage designed specifically to harm me. Swallowing hard, I reached for my phone and quickly dialed Jonathan's number, praying he'd pick up despite the early hour. After 2 rings, his familiar voice answered, clear, calm, professional as always. Evelyn, is everything okay? I took a shaky breath, gripping the phone tighter and forced my voice steady. Jonathan, I'm in trouble. Something happened with my files. Someone altered important data in my project. They're trying to sabotage me. A brief pause, then Jonathan's voice returned firm and unwavering. All right, Evie. First thing, breathe. We'll handle this carefully, step by step. Now tell me exactly what happened. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling a wave of relief at his immediate steadiness. For the first time that morning, I allowed myself to exhale fully, knowing I wasn't facing this battle alone. But as I began explaining every detail to Jonathan, the uneasy thought lingered a shadow in the back of my mind. If they could sabotage my work, what else might they be capable of doing? Whatever happened next, one thing was clear. The quiet safety of ignorance had ended. I was now fully awake to the harsh reality of my surroundings, and there was no turning back. Jonathan's calm voice resonated reassuringly through the phone, grounding me even as my heart continued to race. All right, Evelyn. He began carefully, his words deliberate, clear. First, let's not jump ahead of ourselves. What exactly has been changed? I inhaled deeply, forcing myself into composure. The budget projection was altered. One crucial digit was changed enough to inflate the expenses and derail my entire strategy. Jonathan, if I hadn't double-checked this morning, I would have walked straight into a trap. A brief silence lingered on his end, just long enough for me to sense the weight of his consideration. This sounds deliberate, Jonathan finally said, voice thoughtful but firm. Who has access to your files? I glanced nervously at Olivia's empty chair again. My stomach tightened instinctively, resisting the suspicion that gnawed insistently inside my mind. Technically, anyone on the project team has access, but Olivia, she's been acting strange. I don't have proof, just a feeling. He exhaled softly. Gut feelings exist for a reason, Evie. But right now, we need hard evidence, not suspicions. Here's exactly what I need you to do. Jonathan calmly laid out a plan step by step, meticulous yet reassuringly practical. As he spoke, I scribbled notes furiously, my trembling hand gradually steadying as his instructions filled the page. First document, everything clearly screenshots of the altered file, time-stamped evidence, all file access logs. Create a hidden backup folder immediately someplace secure. Second, track all recent activities on the company server linked to your account, and Evie, tell no one at the office yet, not even Mark, until we know who did this and why. You must be careful. I nodded silently, though he couldn't see me. His tone left no room for doubt, reminding me of the lawyer's unwavering confidence that always comforted me through the toughest situations. Understood, I murmured, finally, feeling clarity return to my thoughts. Jonathan, thank you. I honestly don't know what I'd do without your help. He paused again, his voice softening slightly with familiar warmth. Evie, you're my sister. I'll always have your back. Just promise me you'll stay calm and focused. I will, I replied firmly, meaning every word, ending the call. I took another steadying breath and immediately got to work. My fingers moved rapidly over the keyboard, capturing screenshots, creating time-stamped copies of the original and altered files, checking the server access logs, meticulously noting every suspicious detail. Jonathan's instructions guided my actions methodically, turning confusion into control. Yet as I gathered evidence, an overwhelming sadness mingled with clarity sinking heavily within my chest. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a brutal awakening to reality, shaking the innocent belief I'd clung to that if I worked hard, kept my head down, and stayed honest, success would naturally follow. A bitter taste rose in my throat. For weeks, I had ignored warning signs, hoping naively that everything was fine, refusing to accept what my intuition had been screaming at me from day one. How could I have been so blind? Now that veil had been cruelly ripped away and the raw truth stung deeply. Someone I'd trusted, someone who smiled to my face every day, had deliberately planned to hurt me, to destroy the reputation I'd painstakingly built. Yet, amid the pain and anger, I felt something else, something powerful emerging beneath the surface. Resolve, a fierce determination not to let this betrayal define me. Jonathan was right. Panic wouldn't help, evidence would. I saved the final piece of proof to a hidden folder I'd labeled discreetly as family photos. Buried deep within a maze of personal documents. Then, with one final glance around the empty office, I knew that from this moment forward, everything had changed. I had woken up from my comfortable illusion thrust fully into the sharp-edged reality of betrayal and manipulation. But if someone had intended to break me, they'd made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated my resilience. My naivete had been shattered, but from those scattered pieces arose a woman clearer-eyed, stronger, ready to fight back, not with anger, but with strategic intelligence, patience, and unwavering determination. The phone call had been more than just a conversation. It had been the wake-up call I needed, reshaping me forever. Over the next few days, I continued my routine at the office with meticulous precision, careful not to raise suspicion. On the surface, I was the same Evelyn Brooks, punctual, diligent, calm. Inside, however, I had become sharply observant each moment, a carefully choreographed step in my silent investigation. I began creating minor traps, tiny, deliberate alterations to insignificant files, subtle changes in my meeting schedules, carefully monitoring who accessed or reacted to these small disturbances. It was unsettlingly easy, like laying breadcrumbs in a dark forest waiting to see which shadowy figure would follow the path. As days passed, each subtle maneuver deepened my suspicion. Olivia remained outwardly friendly, her bright smiles and casual conversations continuing as if nothing had happened. But now fully awake and observant, I saw through her mask, the forced laughter, the sharpness that flashed briefly in her eyes, the carefully concealed irritation whenever Mark openly praised my recent achievements. All these things became vivid clues in the increasingly troubling puzzle. One evening, as most of my coworkers had already left for the day, I set one final trap, a test I knew would confirm my suspicions. I uploaded a fake but seemingly critical update on a shared drive embedding a unique tracking link that would immediately alert me whenever someone accessed it. The bait was simple, irresistible. A fabricated note indicating a strategic shift that would significantly benefit my standing in the team, something Olivia simply couldn't ignore. I waited anxiously in my cubicle, eyes fixed nervously on my phone. Minutes ticked by, agonizingly slow. The office lights hummed quietly, the distant sound of city traffic drifting through the windows. Finally, at precisely 6:47 p.m., a soft ping notified me. Someone had accessed the document. My heart skipped as I quickly opened the tracking alert. The user's identity flashed clearly on the screen. Olivia Bennett. I closed my eyes, feeling a heavy mix of validation and sorrow. I'd suspected her all along, but the confirmation still hurt more deeply than I'd imagined. My throat tightened with a painful realization the smiles, the friendly conversations, all were hollow deceptions. Olivia, whom I'd naively trusted and admired, had been working systematically against me. Yet as I sat there, anger and betrayal gradually gave way to a cold clarity. I reminded myself of Jonathan's words, evidence, not emotions, stealing my nerves. I gathered all the screenshots, timestamps, access logs, and tracking alerts into a detailed, carefully structured dossier. Every single action Olivia had taken was clearly documented, leaving no doubt about her intentions. Still, something felt incomplete. How had Olivia managed to alter files so discreetly, avoiding detection? How had she concealed her activities from the server logs initially? I needed one last piece of the puzzle. Early the following morning, I quietly approached our IT manager, Brandon, with a fabricated casual question about access controls and security measures. Brandon hesitated slightly, visibly uncomfortable. "Is everything okay, Evelyn?" he asked cautiously, glancing nervously around. I nodded reassuringly. "Oh, yes, just routine questions." Did someone request unusual access lately? He hesitated again, clearly torn between loyalty to coworkers and professional responsibility. Then, after a moment, his expression softened. Actually, Olivia asked me to help her reset some permissions last week. She said Mark approved it, so I didn't question it. I felt my pulse quicken. Did Mark really authorize that? Brandon looked startled, confusion flickering in his eyes. I assumed so, but I never double-checked. With a grateful but carefully masked smile, I reassured him again. Don't worry about it, Brandon. I'm sure it's fine. Back at my desk, heart pounding, I quickly noted this new revelation: Olivia had manipulated the system with Brandon's unwitting help, further obscuring her trail. Her cunning surprised me, yet deep down it confirmed my growing understanding of her true nature. That afternoon, my phone buzzed, a short text from Jonathan. Any updates, Evie? I replied quickly, fingers trembling slightly from adrenaline. Confirmed, Olivia accessed the trap. Have clear evidence now. She used IT support to hide her tracks. His response was immediate and reassuring. Good, prepare the evidence clearly. We'll take this to management together. Stay calm, Evie. You've handled this perfectly. As I slipped my phone away, a calm certainty settled within me. The storm of emotions still swirled: hurt, betrayal, anger. But something stronger emerged. A profound sense of empowerment. I'd survived manipulation, sabotage, and deception, emerging wiser and more determined. The truth, ugly yet undeniable, was now fully exposed. But Olivia had made one critical error. She'd underestimated not only my caution and diligence, but also my resolve. Now, with the truth firmly in my grasp, I knew it was only a matter of time before justice caught up. I took a deep breath, steadying my heartbeat as I stood outside Mark's office, the folder thick with evidence clutched firmly in my hand. My entire body felt tense, every muscle tightened by the knowledge of what was about to unfold. Jonathan's words echoed in my head, clear and unwavering. You've done everything right, Evie. Now it's time to let the truth speak. I knocked lightly on the glass door and Mark glanced up, motioning for me to enter. Inside, Olivia sat comfortably sipping from her coffee mug. Surprise flashed briefly across her face when she saw me, quickly masked by her practiced, friendly smile, but her eyes flickered nervously to the folder in my hand, a subtle betrayal of uncertainty. Evelyn, come in, Mark said warmly, though a slight crease formed between his brows. You mentioned you had something important. Yes, I replied calmly, voice even betraying none of the turmoil within me. Something crucial. Mark leaned forward slightly, his eyes intent. Olivia sat quietly watching me carefully, feigning a casual curiosity that no longer fooled me. Mark, there's been an issue with some of my recent files. I began slowly, deliberately. Someone deliberately sabotaged my work-altering key details to damage my reputation and credibility. Olivia's eyebrows raised theatrically. Surprise perfectly performed. Sabotage, Evelyn, that sounds incredibly serious. Are you sure? I met her gaze evenly, refusing to blink. I'm very sure. Mark's expression grew deeply concerned. Do you have any idea who might have done this? Without answering directly, I opened the folder, placing clear, detailed printouts onto Mark's desk. Screenshots, timestamps, file access logs, and finally, the decisive piece. Olivia's documented access to my fabricated file. The logs clearly identify Olivia accessing and altering my files, including confidential project information. I explained quietly, voice firm yet devoid of anger. Initially, it was hard to believe someone would deliberately try to sabotage my work, so to confirm my suspicion, I set a test. Olivia accessed that file almost immediately. Olivia's composure wavered for the first time, color draining subtly from her cheeks, though her eyes flared defiantly. This is ridiculous, she protested, turning sharply toward Mark, her voice suddenly brittle with tension. Mark, I'd never... That's not all, I interrupted calmly, refusing to let her take control. Olivia also asked Brandon in IT to alter permissions claiming you'd approved it, effectively hiding her tracks. Brandon confirmed this himself. Mark's gaze darted to Olivia, confusion quickly transforming to disbelief. Olivia, is this true? She hesitated only a fraction of a second, then swiftly recovered her poise. Her voice softened, turning convincingly earnest. Mark, you know me. Why would I risk my career like this? Clearly, there's a misunderstanding, or perhaps Evelyn is mistaken. Maybe Brandon misunderstood something I asked. Mark frowned deeply, clearly uncertain, caught between conflicting accounts. For a brief, sickening moment, I felt the tables turning against me again. Olivia's performance was masterful, every word crafted to cast doubt and confusion. Then I remembered something crucial. Quietly, I opened my laptop, clicked open a single audio file I'd almost forgotten. In my anxiety, a brief recording from that quiet evening. I'd lingered late, catching a conversation between Olivia and another colleague. Their hushed voices echoed clearly. Once this gets out, Evelyn's credibility will take a hit. Mark won't trust her again. Problem solved. Absolute silence enveloped the office. Olivia's confident facade shattered instantly, her eyes widening in genuine shock and horror. Mark stared at her stunned. This is completely out of context, she stammered, weakly, panic eroding her practiced composure. Mark slowly shook his head, disappointment shadowing his face as he faced Olivia directly. I don't see how context could possibly change what we've just heard. Turning to me, his voice filled with sincere regret. Evelyn, I apologize deeply for what you've had to endure. This behavior is unacceptable. Olivia sat motionless, silent, her carefully maintained persona now thoroughly dismantled. I felt no joy at seeing her defeated, only quiet relief and profound sadness at the necessary end of illusions. My gaze met hers briefly, holding no triumph, only steady acknowledgement. I'd learned my lessons, trust cautiously but act decisively. Mark's next words echoed firmly. Olivia, given this clear evidence, you're suspended immediately pending further disciplinary action. Evelyn, thank you for bringing this forward. I nodded silently, the weight I'd carried finally easing from my shoulders. As Olivia slowly rose from her chair, avoiding my gaze entirely, I felt no bitterness toward her, only calm certainty in the path I had chosen. She had attempted to manipulate and control outcomes through deception. I had responded with careful truth. The door clicked softly behind Olivia as she exited, leaving a palpable silence behind Mark. Sighed, rubbing his temples wearily. Evelyn, I'm truly sorry, he repeated softly. You handled this situation admirably. I offered him a faint, sincere smile. Thank you, Mark, but I've realized something important through all this. I need a place where honesty and integrity aren't constantly under attack. I need a fresh start. He looked surprised, but understanding. If that's your decision, I respect it fully, but know you're always welcome here. As I stepped outside his office moments later, relief and clarity filled my heart, pushing aside lingering shadows of doubt. This confrontation had stripped away my innocence, leaving me stronger, wiser, unafraid. I'd finally reclaimed control of my story, and I was ready to write a new chapter defined not by betrayal or bitterness, but by freedom, authenticity, and unshakable strength. In the days that followed Olivia's suspension, life at the office gradually returned to its familiar rhythm. Yet for me, everything felt profoundly different. The pristine walls, the humming computers, the distant chatter of colleagues. Everything seemed sharper, clearer, less comforting but more truthful. The illusion I'd once clung to had fully dissolved, leaving behind reality in its rawest form. Mark had offered me every assurance, urging me to stay and promising a fresh start. Part of me genuinely appreciated his sincerity. But deep down, I understood staying would be a step backward. The toxic seeds sown within these walls ran deeper than one individual, and true change required more than just apologies or superficial adjustments. On a quiet Friday afternoon, after finalizing all my responsibilities, I handed Mark my resignation. He took it with a heavy sigh, but without protest, clearly understanding my decision. "I'll always be grateful for the opportunities you gave me," I told him honestly, my voice calm and steady. "But I've learned that integrity means everything to me, and I need to follow a path that reflects that." He nodded thoughtfully, shaking my hand warmly. "You're going to do great things, Evelyn. Wherever you go, they'll be lucky to have you." Leaving the office for the last time was surreal. Walking down those familiar corridors, I felt oddly liberated, as if shedding a heavy coat I hadn't realized I'd been wearing. Each step toward the elevator seemed lighter than the one before, each heartbeat steadier, stronger. Outside, the late afternoon sun warmed my skin gently, the bustling Boston streets alive with movement, promise, possibility. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I drew in a breath that felt full, clean, and deeply freeing. At home, Jonathan greeted me with a reassuring hug, his steady presence comforting as always. He studied my face briefly, sensing immediately the quiet resolution in my eyes. "You okay?" he asked simply. I smiled gently. "Better than okay. I feel awake." He laughed softly, eyes proud. "Good. So what's next for Evelyn Brooks?" I hesitated briefly, then spoke clearly, confidently. "I'm going to create something of my own. A place where trust isn't a gamble, where honesty and integrity aren't empty words." Jonathan's eyes brightened with genuine excitement. "Your own company." I nodded slowly, determination growing stronger with every heartbeat. "Yes, a consultancy that values authenticity, genuine collaboration, and transparent communication. A safe space. Exactly what I wish I had from the beginning." Over the next weeks, I worked tirelessly to bring my vision to life, pouring every ounce of experience and energy into building my own consultancy firm, ClearSight Marketing. The name was symbolic, a reminder of the clarity I'd gained from painful experiences now transformed into wisdom, guiding my path forward. When the day came to officially launch, standing in my small but inviting office space filled me with quiet pride. My very first client, a vibrant startup eager for ethical guidance, shook my hand warmly. "We've heard great things about you, Evelyn," the founder said earnestly. "We chose ClearSight because integrity matters more to us than flashy campaigns or shortcuts. We trust you to help us tell our story honestly." My heart swelled gently. "Thank you," I replied sincerely. "I promise we'll honor that trust every step of the way." After they left, I stood quietly looking around the bright office filled with natural light and the soft scent of fresh paint. For the first time in my professional life, I felt entirely at home, free of hidden motives, manipulations, or fears. It struck me deeply then just how much the past months had reshaped me. I'd confronted betrayal, survived sabotage, navigated uncertainty, and emerged stronger, clearer, profoundly changed. Every painful step had led me exactly to this point. The sun began to set, casting a warm amber glow across the room, illuminating the neatly arranged desks and welcoming decor. Standing there, peaceful and assured, I recognized something deeply profound. True freedom isn't merely leaving toxic situations behind. It's building new ones, filled intentionally with values, clarity, and purpose. I had finally chosen myself, chosen truth and authenticity, and in doing so discovered strength and independence I hadn't known I possessed. My phone buzzed softly, Jonathan's text lighting the screen. "Proud of you, Evie. Welcome to your new chapter." I smiled, feeling profound gratitude. As I locked up for the night and stepped into the cool, welcoming evening air, I breathed deeply once more, clear, free, reborn. Behind me stood the past I'd overcome. Ahead stretched a future defined solely by my own choices. Finally, I had reclaimed my life, my narrative. Now at last, I was ready to begin. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment and let me know what you think about this story. Please like and subscribe to watch more great content on my channel.